why don't we dive right in? So what recruiters are looking for when they hire new talents. Today in the agenda, we have 3 steps that I want to share with you. First is the job search. Second is the job application, and third, the interview. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll have some time to answer your questions and discuss a little bit more about some of the strategies that you can adopt. All right, so let's dive right in. How to become a master at job search. So I think Yoda from Star Wars has the best quotes, and it's like an infinite number of quotes. And here's one for you that I think it's very relevant to your job search. You will find only what you bring in. So with that word of wisdom, let's jump right in. So the job search, which is the first thing that I want to share with you today, has 4 steps in my view. And I will walk you through each one of them. Reflect what you need to know about remote work, how to find remote jobs, and then what you need to do before you apply for a job. So I will zoom in each one of those and we can see some of the tips for each phase. So reflecting, it's something that we usually, when you're thinking about looking for a job, we tend not to do it because we just think that a job is a job and we need to get a job and we just start applying for jobs. But I really encourage you to take a step back before you apply for jobs and reflect on what you're trying to get out of your job search. So questions like, what do I value in my career? This is you trying to align your personal values with the job that you're trying to find. It might be that you value work-life balance or you want to grow professionally. And those things are really important for you to know in advance. It's interesting if you go to a company website and see what kind of values they have as a company, so that then you can also see if your values align with that company. You might also be asking yourself, what kind of culture and working environment do you thrive in? Do you thrive in a remote environment when you're expected to be more proactive and autonomous, that communication is really important, and you might be working with teams in different countries through different time zones? So that's something that you need to know before you apply for a job. Maybe what kind of products or mission do you want to work on? Do you want to develop a product that has a social mission, or more interested in a specific niche industry that will align with the career goals that you have? And then finally, what values can you provide for a company? What are some of the skills that very few people have and you do that you want to contribute for that company? So writing those down before you start your job search will really help you to navigate the vast amount of jobs out there. So you want to know that beforehand. The second step is do your research on remote culture, because if you're applying for remote jobs, and there are so many remote jobs in 2022, you need to know what that implies. There are several companies that have been doing remote work for many years, and some of them are here: GitLab, Buffer, Zapier. What I would recommend is that you go to their websites and Medium pages and interviews and blogs and try to see what they have said about remote work before. GitLab specifically has a handbook with a lot of information on remote work, from the perks that they give, how they communicate across time zones, what are some of the important skills for you to have. So if you go to their website and you look for their handbook, there is endless information that I think everyone who is serious about remote jobs should read. It will get you ready for applying for a remote job. So take a look at that. The second step is how to find the job that you want. And I will share with you 4 strategies that you can take to try to find the jobs. But the first one is job boards, and specifically job boards that are focusing on remote work. And here you have a few examples of them: Working Nomads, We Work Remotely, Remote.co, or you can even go to a big website like Indeed. This is good for you to get a sense also of what kinds of jobs are out there, compare job descriptions, see which ones resonate with you the most, and then it will give you a better idea of where, what kind of strategy you want to adopt for your job search, and what kinds of companies are more aligned with your vision and what you're looking for. The other three are creating a list of remote companies. So having a list with 2025, there are several lists out there, and you can see hundreds and hundreds of companies that focus on remote work. But having a list of 20 to 25 companies will allow you to go to their website, get to know them a little bit better, and go to their career page and see what kind of vacancies they have. So keep yourself updated with the companies that are more aligned with your vision and what you want for your career. Following remote work experts on social media is always helpful because they give you tips, and they also sometimes share some job vacancies. Some of them will have newsletters that they send weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, and in those newsletters, sometimes they also give you tips, and they will have a job board at the end of the newsletter. And finally, joining Slack and Facebook groups is where a lot of the jobs are shared. So these groups, sometimes you have to pay a fee to get in. Some of them are free, but it's really helpful, again, for you to see what are the job vacancies and which ones really stand out for you. And the final tip is, before you apply, you need to get yourself ready. So you don't want to get ready only when you start applying for the job, because you will take time for you to prepare your application materials. So you want to get this done before you start applying. Believe me, this will pay off down the line, because then when you start applying, and you're not going to be applying for one or two jobs, if you're really serious about job search and you're looking for a job, you might be applying for a job every single day. So have some of those things ready before you start applying will really help you in your job search. The first one is create a personal website and portfolio. Maybe a lot of you already have it. Good for you. So a personal website could be something you create on Notion or Wix or Squarespace. It doesn't need to be anything that complicated, but something that tells someone who's visiting your website a little bit more about yourself, your skills, the work you've done in the past. And it's also where you can include your portfolio. This is something when you're applying for a job, you're going to put in your application, you're going to put in your resume, and I'll talk a little bit more about your online reputation. It also gives credibility to your online reputation. The second thing is update your resume. I know this is common sense, but a lot of people still don't do it. Make sure that you're looking at job descriptions that really are the kinds of jobs that you want, and then update your resume according to the keywords in those job descriptions. This is really important. And the same thing goes for LinkedIn account. So if you don't have one, make sure you create one, because recruiters do take a look at your LinkedIn profile. But if you do have one, make sure it's updated. If you are not sure about how to go about updating or creating your LinkedIn account, take a look at other accounts of people you know and trust that have a good profile, and then you can just replicate some of the things that they do. But what you're looking for is a good headline, a good about statement, where you're really making it clear what kind of jobs you're looking for, what skills you have, and specifically if you're looking for a remote job, then you're listing the skills and qualifications and experience that you have for that specific way of working. And then finally, optimizing your Google reputation. So what does that mean? After this event, just go online, go on Google and Google your name and see what comes up. So what comes up, what you see, the links you see is what a recruiter will see when they're Googling your name. And a lot of them do. When I'm very interested in a candidate, I will go online and Google them just because I'm curious. I'm curious to see what else they do. What are they talking about? What are they writing about? So make sure that to have a good Google reputation, you can have your personal website. This is one step. Have a good LinkedIn profile is another thing you can do. But you can go the extra mile. And the extra mile is make sure you write something online. It can be on Medium, it can be elsewhere, it can be a blog post. Write about the things that are relevant to your career, to your industry, that really gives you credibility. And also you can do simple things like, posting thoughtful tweets or a LinkedIn post about something that is interesting and it's in your industry, people take a look at those things. You don't want them to be only driven to your Facebook profile or something that is more personal. You want also to have something in your online reputation that is linked to your professional identity. So really important. So just to recap here, when you're looking for a job, you're looking for starting with your reflection, making sure you're asking yourself those difficult questions, but really important one, writing them down because they will guide your job search. This is really important. Number two, if you're looking for a remote work, then make sure that you understand what it is and take tips from companies and individuals who have been doing this for a long time. Then third, if you are looking for jobs online, you want to know where you want to go and look for them. So go to the job boards, make sure you follow the right people. This will help you to get a sense of what is out there in terms of remote work. And then finally, before you apply, make sure that you're getting yourself ready. Get your material ready, increase your reputation online, and make sure that you create a personal website. So this is for your job search. The next step is your job application. And I say that the job application is the most critical step because this is your entry door, right? A lot of people write job applications and they write a lot of them and they end up not hearing back from the companies, right? So you want to make sure that your job application is the best you can have. And here are a couple of tips. I start by saying that, this example of "Dear Sir, you're already losing your battle" from Sam from Safety Wing is one just to illustrate some of the mistakes that people make in their job applications. It's not necessarily only the fact that "Dear Sir" implies that someone who is making a decision about your application is a man, and that is itself a problem, but it is also very impersonal. It's very generic. And the last thing you want is that your application is impersonal. You want to make it personal. You want to show the company that you know about the work they do, and that's why you're applying for that specific job. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to share with you some of the tips that you can use to make your application really stand out. And the first one is customizing your application. You want to make sure that you're tailoring your CV to match skills in the job posting. And probably you've heard this before and you're like thinking, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But this is so important because some companies, especially specifically the biggest ones, will have probably a software that is filtering your application. But even if they don't have a software filtering your application, you have someone looking at your application, giving it 5-6 seconds per application. Whatever they use, the outcome is the same. If your application, your CV does not match what they're looking for, then your application is declined. I tend to look at every single application when I'm the hiring manager for a position at Recoded, and I usually give 5 to 10 seconds per application. And because I have done that multiple times, my eyes are already trained to look for those keywords, and I screen through it and I know what I'm looking for. And if it's not there, then your application fails. So it's really important that you're looking at the job description and you're tailoring your application to what the job is asking. Some of the things that you can do, showcase your remote work skills. If this is something that, it's the job you're applying for, you can do that by listing the software that you have used in the past and you have proficiency in. It could be Zoom, Slack, and all the applications, all the software that we know are being used for remote work. Or you can even list some of the skills that you have acquired through working remotely, working with people in different time zones, so on and so forth. And the final thing is avoid one-click applications. What are one-click applications? You can find them on some of the job boards. LinkedIn has one-click applications. Basically means that you fill out your whole profile once. And once you find a job that you're interested in, you will click apply and the software will pull all your information to apply for that job. So what is the problem with that? Is that every single application looks the same. And you don't want that. Remember, you want to customize it. You want to tailor it. So if every application looks the same, your chances will decrease. Myself, as a hiring manager, I can see right through an application that is just a copy and paste of another application. And if that is the case, I'm much, much less likely to pass an application to the next phase. So make sure that you don't go the easy way. Applying for jobs take time. Some people say it's a full-time job for a reason. Put the time and the effort. It pays off. Second thing is show your research. Research is a common theme in today's event because it's really important that you're putting the time to understand the mission, the values, and any information you can find about a company. And you need to make sure that that is coming up in your application. That can be by referencing an interview or something you read about the company. In our case at Recoded, sometimes I see applications that are mentioning something a alumni or someone who graduated from our program said and how that resonated with you. That is really important. You can also demonstrate that you're very ingrained in the industry of your job. That could be by giving examples of conferences you attended, books you read, people you follow. And it can be also by giving your own opinion on trends in your industry. Maybe you're applying for a marketing job and you can share some of your thoughts on where that industry is going in the next couple of years. So show that you know what you're talking about. Then thoughtful responses. It's a little bit connected to the first point, but it is really putting the time to write responses or a cover letter to your application. And that really shows. We have questions that everyone needs to fill out when they're applying for a job with us. And that is the same with a lot of the companies with jobs out there. They will have questions for you or they will ask for a cover letter, and you want to take the time to give very thoughtful responses. If you give me a couple of sentences and they are not compelling enough, then your application is weaker than other applications, and competition is really high these days. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you're showing connection to the company mission. So for example, if you're applying for a job in education or in an ed tech company, you want to demonstrate how education and empowering people through education really resonates with you. It might be because education has played an important role in your life in the past, or something that, you know, later in life you came across. Just make sure that that is clear in your application. Connecting those dots will be really important. Why? Because as a hiring manager, if I'm thinking about someone I want to hire for my team, there will be tough times. There will always be tough times. And I know that if that mission resonates with the person, then during those tough times, they will persevere. So it's really something that recruiters are looking for. And then finally, make sure that you triple check your work. This is really important. And I see a lot of people not doing this. You need to be 100% sure that there are no typos and grammar mistakes in your application. Now, if you're like me, you're going to be applying for jobs that are not your native language, right? You might be applying for a job in English and you're not a native English speaker or any other language. So it's normal that you make mistakes. So that's why it's really important that you either use a software that checks your writing. It could be Grammarly. There are any other, many other software out there. But even then, a lot of the systems today where you submit your application will have that checking in place. So if it's underlined in red, it's because there is a mistake. Don't ignore it. Change it, or even better, ask someone who is fluent in the language to check your work, because you don't want to have typos. That looks really bad in your application. You also need to check the spelling of the name of the company. I see so many applications for jobs at Recoded misspelling the name of the company. That is really bad. Everyone, I cannot stress this enough. If you cannot spell the name of the company correctly, that does not bode well for your application. And it's so easy to check the name of a company. With a couple of clicks in a Google search, you'll find the right name. So make sure that you don't make that mistake and review your application before you send it. All right. Right, so we're going now to the final step in finding a job, which is the job interview. So you submitted your application, and then you get that email back or that call back saying, hey, we want to invite you for an interview. That is really exciting. Sometimes people apply for dozens of jobs until they get that one interview. And what you're thinking is that this is exciting. That's my opportunity to get that job. But at the same time, and I've been there, when you think about the job interview, you're probably thinking this way. You're scared, you're stressed, you're anxious, and it's normal. It's human nature. It is okay. You will feel this way. But I want to share a secret with you. You know, I've been on the other side. I am on the other side almost every week now, hiring people for our team. And my secret is everyone wants you to succeed. It's really rare that you find a recruiter that does not want you to succeed. When I'm having conversations with candidates, I want them to blow my mind, and I want to give them that chance. So make no mistake, the person on the other side of the screen or the other side of the table, they are cheering for you. And they do that in so many ways. Sometimes you don't notice. They might give you some time to think. They might highlight a very good answer you gave. They might be very cheerful and trying to engage you in the conversation. That's because they really want you to be your best self during that interview. So if you know that the person on the other side is really cheering for you, they really want you to succeed, then there is only one thing you need to do in your interview, which is relax. Really, I cannot stress that enough. Relax. I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done, but you need to relax. So let's see how you can do this. And the interview process has 4 parts. And most of the work you do is upfront. It's not really in the interview, is what you can do before. Again, remember your research for the job application. I mentioned that you need to do research in your job search, in your job application, and here it is again in your job interview. So the research that you did for your job application, now it's time to go deeper. You want to read everything that you can find about that company. Remember, that's your chance. You applied for dozens of jobs and you got maybe 1 or 2 interviews. So you don't want to mess this up. So read anything, company website, interviews, news article, anything you can find, and start making sense of what you can do to prepare yourself for that interview. Then it comes the practice. Now, some people will say that once you have your notes in place, that you should practice with someone or practice looking at the mirror. Maybe that's your thing. And if that works for you, by all means do it. It's really not my thing. I don't like practicing with someone else. And definitely, I don't like practicing looking at the mirror. But it is important that you go over your notes and you try to think about the potential interview questions that they might ask you and prepare the answers. Some questions are always there in interviews. They will ask you, why do you want to join this company? Some challenging projects that you had in the past, how you work with teams and how you communicate with them. There are some questions that are always coming up again and again and again. Try to prepare to the best of your abilities for those questions. And there will be questions that you're not ready for, but that's fine because you've done your work, you have your answers, and now you just need to go to the interview. Now, the last point here is extremely important. Make sure that you're preparing 3 to 4 questions at least for your interviewers. There's nothing worse for an interviewer and perhaps for the interviewee when you get to the end of the interview and then they will ask you, okay, so what questions do you have for us? And if you say, no, I'm good, I don't have any questions, that is not good for you. So make sure that you have questions at the end. It shows that you're curious, it shows that you're interested, it shows that you're thinking on your feet, that you have things that you want to discuss, and you can do even better. You can not only ask the questions, but interact with their answers. Depending on the answers they give, maybe it's a product that they're developing at the moment and you have some ideas, go ahead and offer them. Be self-aware about time. If you're running out of time in the interview, and if your answers are too long, you need to be self-aware about that. But it's really good for you as a candidate that you're showing them that you know about the company, you have things that you can offer, and that you're making the interview a very interesting conversation for both sides, right? One other thing that I want you to think before you go on the interview is, what are some of the skills, specifically soft skills, that you really have that you want to emphasize during the interview? And if you're looking for a remote job, then you're thinking about a couple of things. Communication is really critical, both synchronous communication and asynchronous communication. You might want to give some examples of how you have dealt with that in the past, but even in the interview, showing clear communication will be very important for you. Autonomy and independence. Nowadays, you need to be very proactive. If you're someone who's just waiting for tasks to be given to you, that might not fly well with some of the companies that you're applying for. So make sure that you show that you have autonomy and independence. Other things are transparency and humility. There will be questions about times that you made a mistake, times that you fail. And if your answer is, I've never made a mistake, then that might not be a good answer for a job interview. Self-awareness, being resourceful, and self-organized are things that you want to demonstrate in the job interview. All right, so now that you've done your research, you practiced, you feel prepared, that's why the next step is relax. And this is the interview. It's normal that you get a little bit anxious, but if you're ready for it, if you've done your research, you shouldn't worry about this so much. So what are the things that you want to be thinking about? Finding a quiet place for the interview is really important. You don't want any distractions. Nowadays, it's really difficult because a lot of people are working from home, and you might be at home and someone will ring the bell, or your pet will show up in the camera and distract you. Try to the best of your ability. I know that's not always possible, specifically if you live with multiple family members, but try to find a place that is quiet and that you can focus on your interview. Test your connection and your equipment, and close all apps on your laptop or computer. Now, let me go back to the equipment, because that is important if you're looking for a job remotely. It might be interesting for you to invest in some budget streaming equipment. That could be as little as a webcam and a microphone, and that will increase the quality of your presence online dramatically, because even a webcam or a microphone that is not that expensive will be likely better than the camera and the microphone that you have in your laptop. So it's a worth investment. Also, if you don't have good lighting in your house, just get a ring light, and that will make the whole difference. Especially if you're applying for a job online, then they want to see that you have the setup for that. And some companies, once they hire you, they might even give you that equipment. So you don't need to buy anything expensive, but making that small investment might pay off down the line. And then during the interview, make sure that you're very clear and specific with your answers. Give examples when you can. For instance, if you say, if the question is about your communication skills, and you just say, oh, no, I'm a good communicator. I always reply to messages from my team members. This is vague. This is not enough. Give examples of projects, of teams that you have worked with where communication was really critical. You can even give examples of times when you were not a good communicator and what you learned from that experience and how you improved. It's very important to be specific. If you're just being vague, then you're not giving the recruiter anything that they can work with. And needless to say, don't be late. But the reason why I put don't be late here is, if you are late, make sure that you recognize that you're late and you apologize. It's completely fine. I've had candidates who were late because, that's life. Sometimes they are late and they have apologized, and that makes a lot of difference. On the other hand, I have been in interviews with candidates who are late and they don't acknowledge, they don't apologize. And that, it's the first impression that you leave. So it's really important that you're behaving professionally. Now that we covered these 3 steps, there is one last step that is a Small one, but very important one. You need to send a thank you email within 24 hours of your interview. That is a small gesture, but that makes a lot of difference. You are demonstrating that you appreciate the time that the recruiters have put into this. It's an opportunity for you to reiterate your desire to work for the company. Oftentimes you can say in a follow-up email, like, coming out of this interview, I feel even more energized and more excited about this role. In the end, the decision to hire you will depend on your skills, how you did in the interviews, your experience, but that small gesture might make a difference, So you don't want to neglect that, right? And in the end, it is your reputation. We'll see later, even if you get rejected for a job, small gestures like this one can make a difference in building your network in the future. So this is just an example of a thank you email that you can send. It's very simple, has only 2 paragraphs. You're just thanking the interviewers for the interview, mentioning a couple of things that stood out for you. You can emphasize again, why do you think this opportunity is the right for you and how you can help the company, and just, leave the door open. You're looking forward to hearing about next steps, get in touch if you need anything else. This small gesture can go a long way. Now I'm wrapping up all these 3 phases. We saw the job search, the job application, and the interview. Now I have a recap of all those steps and some tips for you. So what are some of the key learnings we had today? First, reflect on your values and the type of working environment you seek, right? It's really important that you do that in the beginning, because it will really help you define what kind of opportunities you're looking for and what kind of jobs are right for you. Maybe working remotely is not what you're looking for. Maybe it is. And it's important that you know that from the beginning so you don't waste your time. Learn more about remote work and hone your skills, credibility, and network. We saw that you can do that by looking at companies that have been working remotely for several years. You can build your credibility online by building your personal website. You can build your LinkedIn profile, and you can build your network by following the right people and making sure that your presence online is adding to your reputation. You want to tailor your application materials to the job. Very important. Research the company, put the time in writing thoughtful answers, because that makes a difference. Your application is the most critical step. If you get that one right, chances are you're not getting 1 interview for every 100 applications you submit. You might be getting much more than that. So make sure that you're not neglecting that step. And then finally, prepare for the interview. Make sure you relax, and don't forget to send that follow-up thank you email. Now I have 2 tips for you at the end. Getting rejected. And believe me, you will get rejected many times before getting your dream job. I lost count of how many job applications I sent and how many times I got rejected until I could understand what was happening. But even if you have a good application, chances are that you might get rejected anyway. So it's really important that you stay positive and humble. And for example, if you were rejected in a final interview, right, which can happen, it's really important that you send that thoughtful thank you email, even if you don't get accepted, because you want to show that you're still positive about the whole experience. You still appreciate the time that they took to look into your application materials and interview you, and you never know what will happen in the future. Someone who interviewed you today might reference you for a job in the future. I have done it before. Some people I know have done it for me. They have referenced people they have interviewed and they were really excited about, but they didn't offer the job. And I ended up interviewing and hiring that person. So it really helps. If you get rejected, don't give up, don't get discouraged, and make sure that you build good relationships with the people you interview with. And the final tip is, what if I have no experience? I know a lot of people ask me this. If I have no experience, what do I do with my job application? So you can go back to step 1 of this presentation and look at the research that you did in the beginning. What stands out for you? Because if you don't have experience, by looking at your research and by understanding a little bit more about the market, you will know what kind of skills, hard and soft, are in high demand in your industry. What field has the most number of remote jobs? By knowing those things, it will give you the opportunity to learn those skills, show some of your transferable skills, and make it clear in your application. Believe me, that works. It might take a little bit more time, but if you have no experience, you want to build that meat around your application, right? Because if you're not able to demonstrate that you have several years of experience, you might be able to demonstrate that you have been working on some of the skills that are required for an entry job. So make sure that you do that. All right, everyone. So these are the key learnings and the tips that I wanted to share with you. Now, I just wanted to take some time to answer some of your questions.